Welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast number 874. I'm Tom Cagley, your host. The dichotomy of control. Why it matters. We have direct control over our thoughts and judgments and actions, but external events and other people's opinions and the outcomes of our actions are not directly within our control, which makes improvement, change, very difficult. When discussing problem statements as part of this discussion, Jeremy Berriault stated, "Stick with STIC." The alliteration was great. Our panel today, Jeremy Berriault, Jeremy Willets, Brad Bridorf, and myself. Hey, remember, the Software Process and Measurement Cast and the blog are all sponsored by Mastering Work Intake. Everything starts with work intake. Poor work entry means delivering less, just period. Check out the book that Jeremy Willets and I wrote on the topic. Pragmatic, all sorts of good advice and ideas on getting in control of your work intake, whether it's a team, a person, or an organization. J. Ross Publishing is a great site to go to find this. They're our publisher, or you can go to Amazon. Links in the show notes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Tom.
Afternoon.
So, how many of you on the call are actually musicians? Jeremy is. Jeremy is. John is. Well, come on, John. I know you. I mean, you got your bass sitting behind you. So, Brad, you're not.
It's been a long time. Baritone horn in 7th grade.
Yeah.
I try to. I refer to myself as a mimic because I think a musician is somebody that can make it up on the fly, and I'm not that guy. If you show me the sheet music, I could probably play it.
That's a musician. I played a harmonica once upon a time. Hey, the band I was with opened for the New York Dolls, so we were the 4th or 5th band on the card, so it would, but it was still our biggest.
Still counts.
Hey, it was our biggest payday. It was probably our only payday. Yeah.
It's definitely not like kissing your cousin.
The kid that was a jazz rock fusion band, which was bizarre.
Metal band.
The kid that was playing the lead flugelhorn in the band was also a lead trumpeter. Had his union card from East Memphis Music as a freshman in high school. And I will guarantee that every one of you, he's now dead, I hear. I guarantee that everyone on this call has actually heard his horn and him. If you've heard, has anyone here not heard the theme song for Shaft?
Oh yeah, that's a bad song. Yeah, that is.
Shut your mouth.
Yeah,
Jack
Sloan. About Shaft.
Jack Sloan was the lead trumpet on that, playing back behind Isaac Hayes as a 14-year-old.
Really?
Wow.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
I saw stuff like that, which is why I decided professional bass player probably wasn't going to be my jam.
Well, it could have been his, obviously. He had an alcohol problem, I understand, and died of alcoholism. But there you go. Nevertheless.
Thanks for bringing the party down, Tom.
Sorry. Just call me Debbie Downer, Dan.
I was in a great mood until 2 seconds ago.
We started off great talking about musicians, exceptional musicians, and then you put the nail in the coffin.
Well, you want to hear another one?
I think maybe
I was re-listening to SPaMCAST number 1.
Could you hear it through the music?
It was interesting. So I was listening to the first SPaMCAST. That was a guy named Will McKnight who did it. We were sitting in a hotel. He was sitting in his hotel room, and I was sitting in my hotel room. He was down the hall from me in Sherbrooke, Quebec, and we were doing a CMMI assessment. So, yeah.
Wow.
He's dead too.
You really are insisting on driving us into the dirt, literally, aren't you?
Jeez.
We've had this topic come up before, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yep.
What? Death?
Yeah.
The
Really?
the murderer's row of Tom podcast guests.
Oh, you know what? There you go. That's a good one, Jeremy. You need to aggregate them and say, "This is my Halloween sequence for you."
Maybe I'll do that. I
Tales
actually
from the
should go
crypt.
through because having been at this for this long, I am firmly convinced that if I go back, way back, right, that there are people that I know a bunch of them are dead just because, they were old when I interviewed them, and, they would be older now. And
Darn it! Now we're all going to die too.
there you go. You know what?
Yeah,
That brings us to a few of the next few sessions are sort of philosophical in nature. Today, I would actually like to discuss the idea of the dichotomy of control affects us. Epictetus, a philosopher, a Stoic philosopher, basically held that there's a dichotomy of control. There are things that you can control, and there are things that you can't. And those things that you can't control, you're just going to have to accept their nature and move on. And those things that you can control, a lot of that is you. Those are the things that you need to spend your time and energy working on. How does that idea of the dichotomy of control think that it affects things like process improvement, things like adopting Agile, things like making change in the world around us, our business world around us?
A lot of us use things like impact and control charts, right? And that's one of the tools to visualize or get a sense of how much stuff we have to control. But I know from experiences in my past that sometimes the things that the team thought they were not able to control, the leadership said, you guys can change that. I probably told that story before. But that was kind of a surprise, right? But we tend to go for the low-hanging fruit, which in many cases is the stuff we think we can control, and try to make changes in that part of the process or whatever the activity is. And if that's insufficient, then we start getting more maybe philosophical, or we start saying, what else is there out there that we need to change? What are the perceived limitations now? The building's not big enough and we need a different building. Well, that's a big step, and sometimes that requires more help from outside.
Arguably, I don't know that we as individuals can control whether or not we can build a building. Impact and control chart. I'll be honest with you. I don't think I have seen people using an impact and control chart since 10 years. So there are probably a lot of listeners who've never heard of that. Could you give us a thumbnail of that, Brad?
A thumbnail of it. It's real similar to some of the risk charts, where you have you identify factors that are constraining you or that are issues, and you quantify their impact, perhaps on something like a 1 to 5 scale, and then you also quantify how much control you think you have over that factor. It could be probably on the same scale, 1 through 5. You just simply multiply them and see which things have the most potential for change.
I think long before you even get to that point, though, let's just say, in your youth, you don't know where the limits are. You don't even think about where you need to not even bother contesting. I can say long before I would be thinking about using those kind of charts, I would have been I think I could change anything and everything not because I'm exceptional, but just because I don't know what can and cannot be. And then you get to a point where you realize some things you can't, and you become more like the Doris Day song, as my wife says about me, que sera, sera. Whatever, it's going to be what it's going to be. All I can do is what I can do. And how it turns out is how it turns out. And I'm hoping it's favorable. I think some of that just comes with maturity of knowing that there are going to be limits for real. And
I'll extend what John said. I don't think it's just youth. I think it's young teams or young groups of people or people who've never been asked before what they would change. I encountered this scenario this week, I think. I was working with a group of folks who, in their particular roles, aren't part of an Agile team, They aren't part of the different events that we do, whether it's Scrum events or safe events. So nobody ever really sits them down and says, hey, what would you like to change about your work environment? And they spent an entire day trying to exercise some problem solving skills to go after things that they thought were systemic challenges. And I think they made great headway. But it was also one of those things where, as I was watching some of what they were doing, I was wondering to myself, are these really things within your control? Are there perhaps smaller things you could go after that would be really impactful and influential that wouldn't require you to go seek like redefinition of your job or redefinition of your job role or hiring a bunch more people to do work with you?
I would extend that just a little bit in another direction, because I recently had some chats with some company that's they've lost a lot of tribal knowledge, for lack of a better word, and their documentation is not mapped to what's really happening. And overall, in aggregate, when I talk to them, they are interested in moving to something that's more continuously and incrementally better. So I would say it's a methodology of continuous improvement that keeps you thinking, what can I change? What is not great? Can I do something about this thing that's not great, to make rework or quality or throughput or stress on the system and the people that play in the system?
For me, I think one of the things, like to Jeremy's point, like about younger individuals, like the newer work generation, I guess you can call them. I find that some of them, yeah, they just like, this is the way it's going to be. So this is the way I was told. This is the way I got to do it. And I found, like, I have a couple of my students for jiu-jitsu. They were shown how to do an armbar, and in their head is like, this is the only way I have to do it. And I kind of blew their minds with like, an armbar is just you're hyperextending the arm, and you can do that in almost any direction. You just have to know where the thumb is that helps point where the arm going to go. And in their heads, I can see the smoke coming out, like just trying to show them you can think for yourself. You don't have to do just what we tell you. As long as you understand the basic concept and then your guidelines, then you can do whatever the hell you want. And like same in the workplace, I worked with a team where like, this is how we got to do things. And when you start asking for like, how are you guys going to improve? And they would look at really kind of the small things, just that even within their team that they can do. But they don't look at like stuff like what HR does, what the budget team does, what the finance team does, what support does, how it impacts them or how they can impact them down the road, back and forth. And they just don't kind of take the blinders off and the sunglasses off and look around like, oh my God, there's so much stuff we can change, and at least have an impact to at least even ask the question. And if you ask the question and they just turn around and say, nope, we're not going to change it. It's like, all right, okay, we'll adapt our stuff so at least it can work up until it gets to you or until you get stuff to us. And at least they can start doing their improvements that way.
Are we confusing influencing something versus controlling it?
Well, isn't influencing a control mechanism?
It is not the same thing as controlling it.
But if I'm able to influence somebody to take some kind of action on behalf, that is...
You're not controlling them. They're making the choice. So that's not control.
Wait a minute. Back up for a sec. Let me understand what you just said. What was that?
I said you might be influencing them, but you are not controlling the situation. The situation is their decision, not yours.
Yeah,
I think we're confusing influence.
I see where we're going here. The whole controlling other people. Ooh, that's not a good thing. And it's not. Really, it's not. But you are influencing the outcome. Maybe that person's missing a key piece of information or the understanding of the consequences of their actions to the rest of the pipeline. But you are influencing it, and you are exerting a measure of, you're using a fulcrum.
And so maybe that's a way to come at this. Instead of it being a black and white, complete control or not control, maybe it's a spectrum of control, influence, no control.
There you go. That I can buy into, because for me, there are very few things a single person, if you look at the whole of the pipeline, very few things a single person can just exert control over and magically make something happen, unless you're some kind of executive or got a serious reputation in the company. Maybe, but probably not even then. I'm thinking part of this job is just as much about influence and making things happen or making other people think about the circumstances in the whole of the situation rather than their immediate. And that is a measure of influence, is a measure of control. You don't control it as in I can't predict how it's going to come down perfectly, but I am making somebody more cognizant of a certain attribute or a ripple effect or consequence of this, and that might make some kind of change.
I've always had a grave problem with project managers that were not part of the team, that were external and had a lot of responsibility and no real authority. They were supposed to make it happen by influence, but there was really nothing they could control other than they could control what got said perhaps on a piece of PowerPoint.
Yeah, you're right. If you're outside the project, your ability to knock around and actually make some changes, maybe from the project outward, as in when your team tells you a certain set of circumstances, then you probably have to rework the project plan, and you're going to, well, that's not really control. That's just notification. You're right. I'm sorry.
It's the chickens and pigs metaphor from the Scrum Guide from 20 years ago, isn't it?
I still wish they had that. Yeah, but it is. Yes, it is. Jeremy, I know that this is, it's not in the guide anymore. People don't use it. People don't talk about it. But why don't you share the chicken and pig metaphor?
Oh God, I'll try and do my best. I mean, the Scrum Guide 20 years ago was written almost as like an office fable, kind of, with this whole chickens and pigs metaphor. And it was sort of geared towards this world where there were lots of chickens around, people who could come and lay their proverbial eggs in and around a team, but could then walk away and not have any proverbial skin in the game. And so the idea of that skin in the game metaphor was the pig, who, skin in the game was literally their bacon. Their bacon was on the line with that particular hunk of work. And so I forget how the guide worked it in, whether it was sort of a preamble, whether there were maybe pictures involved at some point.
Yeah, it was a preamble, if I remember. And it was essentially trying to delineate. My take was that it was trying to delineate the people who are actually in this thing, and they've got skin in the game, and the people who are just kind of tangentially associated with the things.
Yes,
one is seriously involved in this, and the other is kind of like, yeah.
Okay, so the way I heard it, and it's more fun the way I heard it, at least in my mind, is that
unless you're the pig,
well, there you go. A chicken and pig were going into business together to create a breakfast restaurant. And, the chicken was involved, obviously, for the eggs, but the pig was definitely committed.
There you go. Thank you, Tom. You got it.
I always like to throw a rooster in my version of that. And I
don't know how the rooster's committed.
Well, the rooster was the thing that you want to keep running off, right? You just always get in the way, make a lot of noise. It was generally those people that would come to the stand-up and ask questions or other events and really shouldn't be there. And I always said that was a Scrum Master's job to go and run them off. I mean, I've got lots of family on the farm. Some of them actually raise chickens. How many roosters do you ever have on a farm generally?
You better only have one.
There you go.
Or zero.
And what do you do when you get an extra rooster?
You're going to have one.
It's dinner time.
There you go.
Whether you like it or not, it's going to be dinner time.
Yeah.
Because one of them ain't going to make it, and you might as well eat what's left over.
They are fun, though.
You'll eat the loser, so to say.
There you go. If
I can be blunt.
It really does. The idea. And so from a philosophical...
By the way, they're often very tough and not very pleasant to eat from experience.
Well, stewing or smoke them and, make it low and slow. So, I don't know.
That's how you save it. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. I'm spending way too much time grilling this summer and enjoying it. I come back to the idea of things that we can control and things that we can't. One of the things I saw, and this has been a couple of years ago, was I was called in to talk to a group that had stopped doing retrospectives. To be honest with you, I think if there are very few things that I would ever stop doing, retrospectives ain't one of them, right?
I don't think so. Yeah, that's a continuous improvement in look
One would
over your
hope.
shoulder.
And again, I grew up in continuous improvement, so maybe it's a bias, but they had stopped doing it, and so I'm sitting there chatting with the Scrum Master, and the problem that happened was that they would come up with the same problem every 2 weeks.
Did they rotate through the staff for who's leading the retrospective?
No, this was always, but it was the same problem over and over and over. They didn't change how they did it. The whole idea of 9 different ways and blah, blah, blah.
Well,
but
then that must have been a pretty serious problem if it always shows up at the top.
It wasn't anything they could do a darn thing about.
Okay.
They wanted 3 more people. They wanted to be in an office altogether, and they weren't all even in the same city. It was out of their control. There was nothing they could do.
So the retrospective is not going to, if they're hyper-focused on that as the solution, then there's no point.
Well, and to be honest with you, I questioned that the Scrum Master was the one that really needed the help. But that's not uncommon. Ran into it in a different version just the other day. And the answer was, we need to get better requirements. We need to, and that was the answer out of the team that this other team was working with for last 6 months. And they were getting their retrospective done in about 13 minutes. Good times, baby. Land speed record. You knew something was wrong. Why focus on things that they can't control?
If it's the thing that's giving them the most grief, that's probably going to be why. But what you described doesn't sound like a thing that's most good. That seems like a thing you should just bypass. You bring it up once, not a thing. All right, what's next? I mean, here's where Pareto would be nice, and somebody needs to maybe be thinking about what's the biggest of our problems. This might be the perceived issue, but there's probably other things that are just as bad that we can actually do something about.
But even with that, so with the 2 examples you gave, Tom, to me, I'd be going to the team. It's like, okay, well, you're not going to get new people. Fine. What are we going to do to deal with it? What's the real problem here? What's our goal? Right now, they're just looking at the symptom. They're not looking at any sort of root cause. They're not digging deep. They're just pissing and moaning about, we need more people because we're overworked. It's like, well, what do you mean you're overworked? There's what could you do different so you're not overworked? What can you do? The better requirements example too. I think every time I hear that, I just roll my eyes. It's like, okay, cool. Write better test cases. All right. Write better code. That means absolutely squat, because you got to dig deeper into that to find out what's the problem. How could a team work together so that you have more effective requirements or user stories or you name it to get to where you want to go? How do you get to work together to get effective test cases to go with those effective requirements? It just drives me bonkers when I hear stuff like that, because they're just looking for an excuse to throw their arms in the air. And then you got the executives coming, it's like, well, we can't hire any more people. So there's that back and forth. Everyone hates each other and everyone just becomes miserable.
Ooh. So we need to get back to nerd joy again?
I'm going to watch Strange Brew after this. I'll feel a lot better.
Yes. And have a brew while you're at it.
Yes.
So Nerd Joy actually runs on August 17th, just so people know that a lot of these are becoming connected. Brad will explain Nerd Joy on August 17th.
with team assistance.
Again, what I'm hearing, right? What I'm hearing is when there are things that are not within your control, the answer probably is to look for the contributing factors that are within your control. that are within your span of making a decision. Am I missing that?
Well, no, you're right in that, but I think they're fixated on we need more. Like we need people, we need a body, we need or better requirements. They stay fixated on that and not looking in. It's like, hey, how could we dig deeper into this? Like, I want to write more books. I want to be able to write like I can't write like Tolstoy. I never will. And how I write books, but how am I going to get better? So at
you
least
need
when
to
I write
study
my next
Russian
book,
first.
yeah, well, true. Well, I won't get into that, but I'm working on how I'm going to write one chapter at a time to get better at what I do. So when I go pitch this to a publisher saying, "Hey, I want to write this book. Here's the layout. Here's what I'm thinking. This is where we're going to go." At least I want to do it so that I sound somewhat intelligent when I do this. So I know what I'm talking about, but I want to be able to put it down on paper and work through it. People who just sit there and say, it's like, oh, I need more people. I need to hire this, I need to do this, do this, do this, this, without really kind of digging deep into it. To me, that's just being, quite honest, that's just being the lazy way out. That's not being effective. That's not looking at continuous improvement. That's just pissing and moaning, like, or as my one friend would say, taking a chicken, throwing it into a meeting room and locking the door behind them.
I don't get that metaphor.
Just causing chaos.
Ah, okay. So there would have to be other people in the room. Otherwise, it would be sort of like the tree in the woods kind of scenario. It might be chaos, but who the heck would know?
Mm-hmm.
There are, this comes back to how good are we at problem statements, right? And often, especially in engineering communities, there's a tendency to start solving a problem before it's fully defined. And I think about, where production's not good enough or whatever. Well, yes, we could hire more people. We could use AI. We could offload some of the tasks to somebody else. We could negotiate on the requirements. There's a whole bunch of ways to approach this. And often we get fixated on one thing, and often the thing we are fixated on is the things that we believe are within our control.
Well, like to the requirements and being like fixated on a thing. I worked with a team. They were they had to create a new report due to compliance for U.S. compliance and medical reporting. And on their system, they had to generate this new report. And they were having a hard time just writing the requirements for it because no one understood the compliance part. And they pulled me in. I know nothing about U.S. healthcare. Actually, by then I knew something about U.S. healthcare, but I knew enough that, okay, I can at least ask some questions to figure out what they're talking about. I asked 3 questions and they figured out that all they had to do was just change some of the filters and generate a new report with new filters, and that the report was there. All the information was there for their clients. So instead of something that would have taken, they initially said it was going to take a month to do, they were done in 2 days. So it's just going in and asking the questions, being inquisitive, not accepting the fact that, oh, we need to hire more people or we need to take 3 months just to write a requirement. Oh, hold on. Like, take a look deeper into it. What's the problem? Like, what is the issue? What's your goal? And then figure out how you're going to get to that goal.
Well, in their case, it was something utterly and completely different. Jeremy, you were clapping your hands silently.
It was when Brad was talking about problem statement definition, that was just music to my ears because I've seen it. It's been a theme at work recently that I've been trying to teach folks how to craft a really solid problem statement, do some root cause analysis on that problem statement, and then figure out if that's actually the problem after you do all that. And what I witnessed this week when I did a workshop on this topic was we gave multiple problems. Teams identified problems multiple times, and the initial problem statement was not the actual problem that they eventually went to go solve. And in many cases, the initial problem statement was much too broad. It was blaming somebody else for something.
Ooh,
but once they actually got down to it, I think a lot of the problem statements that they eventually went to try and solve were things that were much closer to home. Whether they were things they had complete control over I don't remember what the tally was, but they were certainly things that were much closer to their proverbial zip code.
Understood. So dichotomy of control is less a dichotomy than perhaps a continuum of control?
I think so.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
Boy, that was weak. You guys are
Losing my
usually
voice.
much
I
more.
was on my soapbox a little too long.
It's okay.
John is usually our devil's advocate, so we don't get that contrary voice just now.
Yeah, he has stepped away. What does a good problem statement look like, Mr. Willets?
The two that I've been preaching recently are the W3 format: who, what, when. There are the 3 W's in that statement, so you need to understand some language there within that problem statement definition. The other one is STIC: scope, time, impact, and consequences. I think the STIC, STIC format, in my mind, is much more robust than the W3 format. It allows for less corner cutting than the W3 format. But those are the two I've been preaching recently, and I this week have seen multiple teams lock in to those specific ways to phrase problems and be able to actually identify things that seemed like they were not the thing they initially thought, which was ultimately a symptom. The symptom is not the problem. The problem is deeper.
Mr. Berriault?
Well, I would say STIC, it definitely goes a little deeper. That's just, it's for, because you can do the 3 W's and you can have a statement that is just so vague and out in left field. You still have to work on it. You still have to dig deeper into it. With STIC, at least you can get into a meeting. It's very quick. Once you get one of those items that are too vague, it's no, it doesn't work because it doesn't work with something else. It doesn't work with something else. So get on it. So you can force them to get on it right away instead of have them come up with a statement. It's all right, that's really, really vague. Let's narrow this down. And then I've done this in meetings where I do something like that and I lose half the people because they're like, oh, frick, we just did all this work. I don't want to do any more work. And they already shut down. So I think if you do STIC, then if people stick with STIC, then
You guys are having way too much fun with this acronym.
I know, it's awesome. But at least if you stay the course with STIC, you can get a better valuable statement than you could with 3 W's. There we go.
So stick with STIC.
Stick with STIC.
But not the same STIC that Brad was part of, because that was, we just over. If it's yeah, we're good with the acronym kind of stuff. Gentlemen, thank you for spending time wrestling with this dichotomy of control, this range of control, and giving your advice to the software process and SPaMCAST listeners.
Thanks for having us, Tom.
Thank you.
It's always fun.
Impressions are not fads. In the next SPaMCAST, Stoic philosophy holds that impressions are not facts and must be tested. Why does this matter? It's very easy to jump to conclusions. In some cases, that's harmless, while in other cases, it leads to disaster. Remember, SPaMCAST 875 will post on October 14th. We've got a number of panels coming. If you're interested in participating, reach out to us at spamcastinfo@gmail.com. We look forward to the conversation. If process improvement is a never-ending journey, why do so many people ask, are we there yet?